Have you ever looked up into the night sky and wondered, what would the stars look like from a different point in space? What if I was on the International Space Station right now looking up at this constellation? Would it look different to me? For today's lesson, you're going to be making a three-dimensional model of some of the stars that you see in this image. This image is part of a constellation we call Ursa Major. Here's what you need to complete the lesson. You'll need a piece of black or dark colored construction paper, about the size of a notebook page would be good, or just a standard printer sheet page. You'll need some tin foil. I've just ripped some off into pieces that are, about 6 inches, across. You'll need some tape, a pencil, a ruler, scissors. They can be kid scissors, they don't have to be long scissors, and some thread or string. So that's what you need. I've also got a glue stick here because I chose to mount my piece of construction paper on a piece of cardboard. So I'm also using recycled cardboard from my recycling bin and a glue stick to attach those things, and I'll show you that in a minute. All right, so I'm just clearing my workspace here. So what I've got in front of me is my piece of construction paper. Now, I did choose to mount my construction paper on a recycled piece of cardboard. So that's what I'm gonna be using, but you don't have to. It'll just make it a little bit of a sturdier model. The other thing you need is in the directions, there's some important things. So one of them is this map. And you may be able to see just from looking at it, what constellation are we looking at? So I'm just going to draw the imaginary lines between the stars to make it a little bit clearer. And this is not perfect. These lines don't exist in space. They are just things that we make up to make sense of what we're looking at. So now you can probably tell what it is. It's the Big Dipper. So that's the model that we're going to be making today. You don't have to draw the lines. I just did it to show. But what it does have on it is the names of each of the stars that you will be making today. So you do need this map. You don't have to print it. You can look at it right on the screen and do it from there. Now, in the lesson, they recommend that because you want to mark these stars on your piece of paper here. Now, they recommend that you just, and I'll show you one, that you just take your pencil and poke, and I've got a real sharp, poke it right through so that it goes through the paper and the layers below it. That might be a little tricky. Did I get it through? Oh, I see I made a dot. So that's where my first one would be. Now I need to take my real sharp pencil and poke that star all the way through. The other way you could do this though, which is probably the way I'm gonna do it, is just because not everybody has a printer. I don't always want to print things. Is just by looking at the images of the stars and kind of freehanding it. So there's my first star. I'm going to do it in pencil first so I can correct my mistakes. I'm going to put my second star there. This one looks like Fecta is the name of the star, something like that. And Mirak. Not exactly sure how to pronounce these. Mine are not exactly in the same place. That part's okay. We don't have to be super precise, but you do want it to be the right shape. My next one, I think it's Aloth and Mizar, if there's any astronomers out there. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing. And my last star is here. So I'm just gonna step back for a second and take a look. Does it look similar to the image? Does that look about right? And it does look about right to me. So then I'm gonna take my sharp pencil, using a mechanical pencil, that really helps, and poke through the paper. Now because I already mounted it on cardboard, it's gonna take a little to get it through. So you may need somebody to help you, an adult or an older sibling. With this part, if your pencil isn't sharp, because I'm trying to go all the way through the layers, because this is where I'm gonna hang my stars from. All right, and I could label my stars with their names if I like. Let's see the back. I see that I was able to poke all the way through. Perfect. Next step is to make my stars. For this, I need a piece of tin foil for each star and some thread. So I'm just gonna pull off, actually this one's already started. So I'm just gonna pull off, and I'm gonna estimate here, about 2 feet of thread and cut it with my scissors. This part I'm estimating, we're gonna measure next. Oops, my scissors aren't very good. Cut my thread. Now I'm gonna take my tape and I'm gonna tape the thread to part of my star. I think I'm gonna flip it over. So I'm gonna tape it to the not shiny star because I want my star to be shiny. So I'm just gonna take a little piece of tape and attach. Now, this tape won't hold on the thread, so I'm gonna now crumple it up to make my star. So I'm gonna crumple it up around the end to make my star. Now I'm kind of trying to make it roughly spherical shaped. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I feel like my star is a little bit big, but that's okay. And that enclosed the thread, which is what's really important. So because you're gonna hang it. Now, next part, here comes the math. So remember when you're making your holes to put your stars through, I told you don't have to be precise, you just want it to look like the constellation. But for this part, you do need to be precise. So you need this page in the directions, and I'll just zoom in. Again, you don't need to print it. Because what this shows us, it has the names of each of the stars, which we had on our sheet here, and it has their distance that you're going to need to measure out. So this is the actual distance from Earth in light years. So let's see, what's the closest star to us? Well, it looks like some of them, I would say that one is probably the closest to us, but you can figure out which ones are the closest and which ones are the farthest away. So that's the actual distance in light years to the star. This is our scale distance. So this is how we're gonna show that distance on our model. And this is the part you need the ruler for. And you need a good ruler. It doesn't have to be fancy. I'm gonna use the inches because this is measured in inches, that's our unit. But you definitely need to make sure that you have a ruler with all of these markings up to 1/16 of an inch. And I'll show you how to use it. So our first one's easy. Our first one is this star right here. It is the end of the handle, alcade or alkiad, something like that. And it's telling us on the chart that the string length should be 0 inches. So I don't actually need my ruler for 0 inches to represent 123. I do need to figure out where that star is, and I know it's at the end of the handle. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take this string and pass it through the hole that I've made. And here I may need something like a paper clip or a pencil or something like that to get the string through to the other side. I'm just gonna try and stuff it through with my pencil. Oops. Not so easy. So I might need a paper clip after all. So I'll let you figure out how to get yours through. I finally got mine through. Now, it's going to be 0 inches from that point in the sky. So that means I'm going to pull my star right up to my surface. See how it's right up and touching? Just like that. And then I'm going to flip over my cardboard and I'm going to attach. And this one I want to really anchor it down really well with my tape. So I'm going to attach the thread to keep it there because I want to hold my star at that distance. I'm going to use a couple pieces of tape. You could also, tie knots, whatever you want to do. You just really want to keep that star in place so that when you flip over your model, it's not going anywhere. See how mine is not going anywhere at all. At this point, I could cut off my extra string if I like. That part's up to you. You just want to make sure they don't get tangled as you're going. Now my next star in line is going to be a little bit trickier. So here's where I really need that ruler because I'm going to need to measure. So I see that the next one in line is this one right here, Mizar, something like that. And I see it's 78 light years from Earth. And we're going to show that in our model by measuring out 9 1/8 of an inch of string. So I've already made my star using my chart. I know that that star is the next one in line. Okay, so now the trick is, how do I get my string to be 9 1/8 inches exactly? Well, obviously I'm gonna need to measure. So let me just get my model out of the way for 1 second, and my inches side up. So I'm gonna have to tape this exactly 9 1/8 of an inch. And in order to do that, I really need to make sure I know where the 1/8 of an inch is. So let me zoom in for 1 sec. All right, so if this is from 0, and a ruler, we never start at the very end of the ruler unless that's how your markings are. You always want to start at the 0. So I know that between this line here, the 1, and that 0 is a full inch. So that's my full inch. So I know that you can see there's markings in between. So halfway, that would be a 1/2 of a whole inch or a 1/2 inch. And if I wanted to, I could mark it on my paper. So let me just show you how that works, because I know that 5th graders study fractions. So I know that in 5th grade we study fractions. So let's just see how that works. So 1/2 of 1 whole. Another way of writing that would be 1/2 of 1 whole. Now 1/2 of 1 whole equals 1/2. 1/2 of a whole is a 1/2. Now if you don't like to do it the number way, just look at your ruler. There's the whole, there's the 1/2, and we know that that space between my 2 fingers is a 1/2 of the whole. So it equals 1/2. So that's a 1/2 of an inch. Well, then what is 1/2 of the 1/2? So 1/2 of the 1/2 is the line that's between my 2 fingers right there. So let's do that. So 1/2 of 1/2. Another way of thinking of that is 1/2 of, or times 1/2, and that equals 1/4. Okay, again, if you're not comfortable with the fractions, that's totally fine. Use your ruler. It's easier for me to see on the ruler anyway. So I'm looking at my 1/2 here. I'm not being very precise because I've got my marker, and I know that halfway in between the beginning and the 1/2 is a 1/4. So that's a 1/4 of an inch. So we're trying to get to an 1/8 of an inch. So we have to go in even further. So now we're going to go to 1/2 of 1/4, which is right there. And again, the math way, or the numeral way, 1/2 of 1/4 is the same thing as this. Now, as you look over these, you may see a pattern. It depends on how far you've gotten with fractions. But that's how it works in the numbers, because numbers make a lot of sense to some kids, and to other kids, the ruler itself is going to make more sense. Let's check that using our ruler. So here's our 0, here's our 1. We were looking at this little line here, and we said that one was 1/8 of an inch. So this is 0 inches, this is 1 inch, and that's 1/8. Well, if that's true, that's 2 of these little lines. So there should be 8 of them in a whole. So let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8/8 equals 1 whole. Perfect. So we're good. So this is 1/8 of an inch. So we need to know that 2 tiny lines equals 1/8. And I bet you can figure out what the little line is in between. All right, so now it's time to measure. The whole point of that was to measure our distance. All right, so I've got my measurement. I'm going to measure out 9 1/8 inches of string. I've got my star on my string. So I want to make sure that I start with the star lined up with my 0 point. And you could even use a little piece of tape if you want to make sure your string doesn't go anywhere. So I'm going up to my 9th, and then I know that it's this little line right here is my 1/8. So that means that this star, 9 1/8, is right here. Now I'm using black string, so it's going to be pretty tough for me to tell. I might do something to mark that for myself just until I can get my string onto my model. So I'm going to put a little piece of tape around it just to mark how far I want to pull it through. But you could come up with your own way of doing it. And I'm actually going to take this tape off after. I know it's hard to see, but I marked it right at the 9 1/8. And then I'm going to pull my string, my thread through my model as I did the other one. All right, so I pulled my string through to the other side for my second star. And all you can see right here is the string. But what you're going to find is when you hold up your model to your ceiling, obviously this one's going to be hanging at a different distance than the first star that we did. Now I'm probably going to check my measurement by laying my star out on my model and putting down my ruler and making sure that I was correct. Because if it's not really 9 1/8 of an inch, I would like to go back and do that again because I want my model to be as correct as possible. But I think I actually think that I did a pretty good job there. You may have another system for measuring that out exactly. Now let me see if I can show you a little bit what it's going to look like, because I'm going to let you do the rest on your own. So I think that you have the hang of it. Let me show you what it looks like so far if I put it on the ceiling.
All right, so I took my model and I just stuck it up in my office on between some of the ceiling tiles just so you can see. What you want to do is once you're done with it, you want to hang it from your ceiling, someplace on the ceiling of your bedroom or any place in your home. And what you can see is just the first 2 stars that I've done there. I haven't finished my model. Now this is how we look at the Big Dipper from down here on Earth. When we look up at the night sky, it tends to look like it's a 2-dimensional picture to us. But what's interesting is to look at it from different angles, and that's what I'd like for you to do. So once you've completed your model, hang it up on someplace high on the ceiling, lie down directly under it, and take a good look. Does it look like the Big Dipper to you? And then what you want to do is stand up and look at it from different angles. What does that tell you about what space really looks like? What does it tell you about what the constellations look like if we looked at them in a more realistic way as they are in 3 dimensions in space? Can you tell anything about which stars are closer or further away, or anything else about what objects look like to us in space? So I hope you enjoyed that lesson. If you make a model, I would love to see it. Draw a picture of it for me or send me a photograph. I'd love to see your work as always. All right, see you next time.